that we would meet again. But for 97 days, he said no. People look at me and say, why are you always an optimist? Because I know, as an American, tomorrow will be better than today. I had to be an optimist that every day I woke up and said, maybe today the president would change his mind. Maybe today he'd want to put the country first. Maybe today he'd want to meet. But he never did. Not until our entire conference passed a bill. The Senate never did. They took no action. The Democrats' plan was to do a discharge petition to only raise the debt ceiling, and we'd have no savings. We'd take us further off the cliff. But when I finally got to meet with the president, we couldn't talk about the entire budget. We couldn't talk about and look at places that we could have savings. We could only focus on 11% of the budget. But in that 11%, not only did we give you the greatest savings in American history, there's going to be people who are on welfare today that will no longer be on welfare, that they will find a job because of the work requirement. And not just when they find that job, their self-worth, their attitudes are going to change. They're going to believe in themselves. They're going to be able to buy a house, send their kids to college because of the vote we took tonight. Because of the vote we took tonight, the largest rescissions in American history. All the COVID money, the billions of dollars sitting out there that they said they would never bring back. You know what? To the taxpayer, to you hard-working Americans, we stood for you. We brought that money back. For those who are afraid that they're going to get audited because the president wants to have 87,000 new IRS agents, right now he has 0. We took every single dollar they were going to hire somebody this year away. And I promise you, I'll be back next year and next year and next year. Because I believe government should be here to help you, not go after you. We didn't just take the money from this year, we took another $20 billion. I think we should get some more border agents with that $20 billion. I think that's where America would want to see us go. We capped the ability of growth, of spending in government for the next 6 years. We're holding people accountable to do the work you're supposed to do as a member. Otherwise, cuts across the board. We are unshackling what holds America back for competition with other countries. For the first time in 40 years, we changed the environmental review process. So you don't have to wait 7 years on average to build a road. You could do it in 1 or 2. So it's not just the bridges, it's not just the roads, it's the energy projects that will make us energy independent. We stopped $400 million going from the CDC Global Health Fund, not to Americans, but taking Americans' money to send it to China. I believe in looking after America first. More than 2/3 of our conference voted for it. We got all the Democrats who signed a discharge petition to say they would never raise the debt ceiling, only raise it clean. We got them to vote for it too. So think about how much further we can go. I didn't stand far from this room after 3 days of trying to get elected speaker. And every question you gave me, what could we survive? What could we even do? I told you then, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Each week, we have stood up for the American public. Be it its strongest border security, be it a parent's bill of rights so you can have a say in your kid's education, be it ending the pandemic or standing up against those who are weak on crime to make our streets safer. Tonight, I hope we proved it to you again, that we put the citizens of America first. And we didn't do it by taking the easy way. We didn't do it by the ways that people did it in the past by just lifting it. We decided that you had to spend less, and we achieved that goal. Is it everything I wanted? No. But sitting with one House, with a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic president who didn't want to meet with us, I think we did pretty dang good for the American public. My last question, my last statement to everyone in America, I will never give up on you. It wasn't an easy fight. I had people on both sides upset. But I was focused on you. And I will stay focused on you because I'm waking up tomorrow going after everything we didn't get here today. This is an extraordinary team that helped us. Our majority leader, Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nobody said it would be easy to break Washington's out-of-control spending pattern. It's been going on for decades. If you look at the spending curve, just how much money every year Washington has been spending, more than it takes in. And for years and years, people would say somewhere it's got to start where they turn the ship, where they start righting the ship, where we finally start cutting spending. Yet it never happened. Republican, Democrat administrations failed, and tonight we took the first step. A bill that actually cuts real dollar spending next year compared to what it was this year. That's an important, critical first start. It's just the beginning. This is by far not the end. It is the beginning of changing the pattern of spending in Washington. And make no mistake, if Nancy Pelosi was still Speaker and the Democrats were in charge, we wouldn't be having a conversation about how much we cut. The conversation would be about how much more did Washington vote to spend? How many more taxes did Joe Biden put on the hardworking families of America? Because that's what President Biden wanted to do. He made it crystal clear, not just to Speaker McCarthy, but he actually talked about it publicly. He wanted more taxes, even though he's passed over $1 trillion in new taxes, and that tax and spend burden over the last 2 years is one of the reasons why families are struggling today, why inflation is running, skyrocketing out of control today. It wasn't until Speaker McCarthy said, that day is over. No taxes. In fact, no new spending. We're finally going to start negotiating about how much to cut, how much to save for the American people, how much can we finally get our country turned around and start growing the economy. And this bill contains components of all of those elements. Real cuts in spending. If you look at some of the important factors, just cutting over $1 billion in the IRS. President Biden wanted to more than double the agency. And CBO confirmed it was going to be going after lower income families. People that are single mom working 2 jobs was going to be paying more. And we finally started to reverse that trend. Real work requirements. You want to talk about something that's going to help change the culture of this country. Getting people back to work at a time when everybody's looking for workers. You know, people think it's psychotic that the federal government is borrowing money from countries like China to pay people not to work at a time when everyone's looking for workers. And not only do these work requirements help restore the dignity of work, but these work requirements will help strengthen programs like Social Security and Medicare that are so vital to us and so important to those people who earned those benefits. Yet when President Biden started paying millions of more people to sit on the sidelines, to turn down work and still get over $35,000 a year in benefits, they're not paying into Social Security, they're not paying into Medicare. That's one of the reasons why those programs are going towards bankruptcy under President Biden. We reverse that trend by strengthening important programs like Social Security and Medicare. A lot of other important provisions in this bill. But again, this is the first step. This is a down payment on the other things that we're going to start doing, but none of those things would be possible if we didn't start tonight in the action that was taken by this House in this majority. With that, I want to yield to somebody who's been working overtime to make sure that all of our members from every swath of our conference have been able to talk about the important components of this bill all around the country over these last few weeks. Our conference chair, Elise Stefanik.
Thank you, Steve. Today is truly a historic day. The Fiscal Responsibility Act is a win for the American people and future generations. I know that as the newest mom in Congress, when I think of my son Sam, when I think about the babies born in this country today, we are standing up for them. I also want to thank Speaker Kevin McCarthy for his extraordinary leadership, this entire team, Patrick and Garrett for leading the negotiations, and the dedicated and disciplined teamwork of our House Republican Conference to successfully communicate our message and deliver this result for the American people. The Fiscal Responsibility Act will be the largest deficit reduction in history. It will restore fiscal sanity, and it will hold Washington accountable. Despite being consistently and constantly underestimated by the mainstream media, week after week since the start of this Republican Congress. But week after week, day after day, House Republicans will work tirelessly for you, the American people. We will continue to provide policy solutions and successfully communicate around these critical issues to strengthen our economy. And we won this public narrative with the support of the American people. Between President Biden and Speaker McCarthy, House Republicans won from start to finish. The passage of this legislation is a testament to House Republicans delivering on our commitment to America, an economy that's strong. I look forward to the Senate passing this bill, and again, I thank Speaker McCarthy and the entire conference for their teamwork and leadership to deliver this result. I'm now honored to turn it over to one of our chief vote counters, our chief deputy whip, and I want to also thank our whip, Tom Emmer, for their incredible work throughout this process. My good friend from Pennsylvania, Guy Rushenthaler.
Thank you, Chairwoman Stefanik. You know, we got to remember where we were when we started. Everybody said that the Democrats would not negotiate, that Biden would not negotiate, that there had to be a clean debt ceiling increase. And we were told that Republicans would never have the votes to lift a debt ceiling. And we passed Limit, Save, Grow with Republican votes. We did that despite everybody saying we wouldn't. And then we came back, we got Kevin McCarthy in the room, we got Garrett Graves in the room, Patrick McHenry to negotiate. And we were told again that Republicans would not have the votes to get this done. And tonight, we passed this with over 2/3 of our conference voting for this act. And we knew we had to do two things. Of course, we had to lift the debt limit. We had to avoid financial disaster, but we also had to have real spending reforms. And this is the largest deficit reduction we've had in history. So I couldn't be more proud of Whip Tom Emmer, our entire whip team, Speaker McCarthy, and the two negotiators that we had in the room, Garrett Graves and Chairman McHenry. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to my good friend, Chairman McHenry.
Thank you. Well, first of all, it was an honor to negotiate on behalf of House Republicans and Speaker McCarthy. That was a true honor. And it was a real privilege to work with Garrett Graves of Louisiana, who's become a very dear friend of mine and a trusted confidant. It was tough. It's a tough negotiation. It didn't please everyone. Go ask anybody in the halls, right? It's divided government, so our expectations have to be right on what we can achieve in divided government. But even in divided government, we brought a fiscally conservative package to the House of Representatives, commensurate with the House Republicans' demands that we pare down spending, commensurate with the command of the Speaker that we spend less money next year than we spent this year. And we delivered on that. It's $2 trillion of savings. And what that means for the taxpayer is it lightens their burden to pay higher taxes in the future for the debt we're accruing today. We have work requirements, and we think the value of work is important for American society, and we give people that opportunity and connect it with the social safety net. And we balance that, making sure that we are careful about the homeless population and veterans and those right out of foster care. We're very thoughtful about that. And finally, with permitting reform, with environmental law changes, we're going to see energy production here in America that will happen more quickly. We're going to see projects happen like roads and bridges and buildings happen more cheaply and a whole lot faster. So there's a good package. And this is a down payment on what conservative governance can look like in Washington, D.C. But in a divided Washington, it's not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction for the conservative philosophy that I hold and the outcomes that I seek and House Republicans seek. But I want to thank Speaker McCarthy Without his focus and effort, without building consensus among House Republicans and being able to deliver on a bill that raised the debt ceiling, we wouldn't have been at the negotiating table. So we had a lot of folks that wanted to make the perfect the enemy of the good. This was quite a good package. I'm proud of the work we were able to put forward, and I'm proud that this bill can become law. And it was a real honor to work with my good friend, one of the most intelligent, focused members of Congress, and one of the worst practical jokers that I've ever met, my good friend, Garrett Graves.
Thanks, Patrick. Wow, what a year it's been. Y'all remember in January, you're sitting here looking at one of the thinnest majorities in modern history. You're watching a bumpy January start. And you, along with everybody else around the country, was sitting there thinking, this is going to be a dysfunctional Congress. But I'll tell you, there's one person who's standing behind me who said this isn't going to be a dysfunctional Congress, this is going to be a transformational Congress. And with one of the thinnest majorities in modern history, look at what's happened in this House of Representatives, how this speaker's been able to unite members of this conference with diverse ideology, being able to pull people together and passing legislation which transforms how we deal with energy in the United States, helping to lower prices, helping to lower emissions, helping to sever our dependence upon foreign countries for energy. We have a crisis on our southern border with millions of citizens of other countries illegally crossing into our nation, bringing fentanyl that's killing our own citizens, enriching cartels, human trafficking. And this speaker brought a diverse group of people together, and we passed border security. We passed American security legislation. We had a Parents' Bill of Rights that was passed with strong support. We had a bill that was signed into law that prevented a lessening of punishments for crime. We had a bill that was signed into law that ended the COVID emergency. And today, one of the most historic pieces of legislation that has ever passed the House of Representatives. A bill that will save the American people over $2 trillion. A bill that helps to restore the appropriate balance of powers as envisioned by our founders. That ensures a role of Congress, that ensures that you don't have a tyrant, a dictator, a monarchy that's out there waving a wand, deciding that hundreds of billions of dollars of taxpayer funds are going to be spent without any approval or consideration by their representatives in the United States Congress. Legislation that builds upon work requirements, that benefits both those that pay taxes and those that are dependent upon our social welfare safety net, because it has been proven that this helps get people back into the workforce. Look, I could go on and on about all the benefits of this legislation, but I'll tell you what has happened today by this Congress that is going to be signed into law. This is one of the most significant pieces of legislation that's ever passed, and I'll say it again. With a bumpy start and many people with incredibly low expectations, we've once again passed transformational legislation, and as the speaker said, it's just the first step. The man behind me is one of the best strategists I've ever seen in my life. And what you saw today, the legislation that passed with over 300 votes, hitting high water marks in categories no one ever expected, anticipated, or ever before achieved. Wouldn't have happened without him, wouldn't have happened without the vision, the leadership, the persistence, and the optimism. Thank you.
I do want to say there's one person that's not here right now that deserves a lot of credit, and that's our whip, Tom Emmer. He's done an amazing job. So, want to take some questions? Yeah, you're excited.
So in the bill, there's the CR provision. Why does it?
No, there's not a CR. What it says, this is not an automatic CR. It says, for too long, I'm frustrated how this place works. People didn't have to show up for work. You couldn't be in this building. We would have to pass 1,000-page bills with no one having opportunity to read it. I hope you understand that has all changed. But what we would do is, in the past, the Democrats would wait and they'd throw an omni, do all the work they hadn't done all year, and they'd throw it with about $1.4 trillion at us right before Christmas, told you had to pass it or you couldn't go home. You couldn't read it, you got shoved at you. No more omnis, No more business that way. This place has changed. This was a 99-page bill. I'll get to the answer. You had 72 hours to read it. The majority, 15 pages, were just rescissions, things that we are taking back. What this does, by January 1st, encourages this body to pass all 12 appropriation bills. Don't give us an omni. Do the job you're elected to do. And if not, a 1% cut across the board. I think it'll encourage them to do the job. Yes.
What would happen between October 1st and January 1st?
You would have to pass some type of CR during that time period. Yes.
Speaker McCarthy, this was an overwhelming bipartisan vote. Does it say something that more Democrats voted for this bill than Republicans? Do you have any regrets about pushing for deeper spending cuts that could have got some of the conservative members?
Really? Okay, so let's see. Deeper spending cuts. Non-defense spending, you take vets out, is lower than it was in 2022. What we just proved was Democrats were here, they spent $6 trillion. They brought us inflation, everything else. They said only thing they would do is just raise the debt limit. Well, now they voted for work requirements. Now they just voted to put PAYGO on on all of our president, that he can't go create a new regulation or others without cutting before that. They now just capped spending for 1% for the next 6 years. I can think of all sorts of more bills I'm going to bring to the floor because they just said now they'd vote for it. I'm not sure I heard everything, but this is what I heard the question. You tell me if I'm wrong. What does it mean to not give up on the American people? That President Biden said, I kept my word? Okay. And what do I see going forward? When I talk about the American people, I talk about we're going to stop until we make your streets safe. We're not going to stop until we make sure the border is secure. We're not going to stop until we get the rest of the IRS agents repealed. We are not going to stop until we put ourselves on a path that a new child born in America is not given a $95,000 bill. We're going to make our economy stronger. We're going to make our streets safer. We're going to give you more freedom where government gets out of your life, and we're not going to stop until we make this happen. Yes, sir. Now, let's be serious how we got here. You say it's a unique coalition. It's a coalition of a Republican Congress with 5-seat majority leading. The president would have never even met with us. He denied meeting with us for 100 days until we passed something and the Senate did nothing. The House Democrats said they'd never vote for anything until the president came down and told them this was their deal. They weren't in the room. So that's a unique coalition. That we pass a bill, you negotiate around our bill, and the Democrats in the day join us to vote for it. I'll take that every day of the week. Yes, ma'am.
While the majority passed this with the majority, you still had more Democrats voting in favor of this than Republicans. Chairman McHenry told me earlier that those in opposition to this legislation didn't understand the bill. Is there anything that you believe you could have done differently to get more members to see this bill the way you do?
Look, every day I could wake up and improve. There's so many times I stumble as we go. It's difficult in a time of negotiations to keep your full conference abreast because as we do, you all leak it and you can't negotiate once you leak so something blows something else up. Maybe if we were in session when we were closing down to the end, maybe so. I don't think we were ever going to get anybody. I mean, we have people who didn't vote for Limit, Save, Grow. Ken Buck didn't vote for that. Andy Biggs didn't vote for that. I don't think they've ever voted for a debt ceiling. Matt Gaetz has never voted for it. So we're never going to get everybody. But we have spent 4 months bringing everybody together. And whether you voted for or voted against it, you wanted something more, right? I can only look at what's on the bill. If I'm going to say this doesn't have something I want, I'd vote no against every bill. But history will write This is the largest cut in American history. It's not even close. And there's a number of people who voted against it that have voted for debt ceilings in the past that just raised them. So maybe I could have explained it better. Maybe I could have been a little out front but I'll improve each day. It wasn't an easy task. The president not willing to meet with us, so there's probably a lot of different things we do better. Yes, ma'am.
You said that Democrats got nothing in this bill. They just got more votes. So how do you define them as getting nothing if all those Republicans?
Well, I think they voted for her because they wanted to stick up for their president. But if you think they got work requirements, I'll bring them more work requirements. If you think they like the idea of having $2 trillion in cuts, I'm coming back tomorrow with more cuts. If you think they like the idea that we can change environmental review, I'm bringing more of that back because I didn't get everything I want. If you think the Democrats like repealing $21 billion from the IRS agents that they want to try to hire sometimes and they hired none, I'm bringing back the next $60 billion to them. So this is great. I think it's wonderful that they voted for it because they are now on record. So they can't sit there and yell, this isn't good. So I'll bring something back tomorrow. Let's get the rest of the IRS agents. Let's get the rest of the work requirements. Let's cut more because we are in a big debt. This is fabulous. This is one of the best nights I've ever been here. I thought it would be hard. I thought it'd be almost impossible just to get to 218. Now I found there's a whole new day here. We've woken them up. Maybe they listen to our speeches. I don't know. Yes, ma'am. Two-thirds.
Yeah, two-thirds.
Over two-thirds, but just to be fair.
Do you think that this should kind of quiet the rumblings when you House Freedom Caucus members up in Washington?
It's up to them. Yes.
So, in the past several days, obviously, some members of your Congress have been very vocal about their issues with this bill. Some of them violated promises you made to them in January. What is your response to that?
Well, first you have to tell me what promise I violated. Did I say I would cut the biggest spending cut in American history? I don't even think I said that, but I probably surpassed my promise. If you think I would say we'd get back to 2022, if you take the non-defense veterans out, it's actually lower than 2022. If I said we'd get some work requirements, we got some work requirements. If we said we would cap it, spending, we got 6 years of that. So I'm not sure which promise I could make that I couldn't keep. Oh, yes. Yes, ma'am. Well, we've got a number of things we've got to do, but we've got to do appropriations. We've got a lot of oversight work to do. I don't know if you followed FBI Director Wray not following through on our subpoena. Now says he would let us look at the document. I think there's a lot of problems out there. There's a lot more in spending. I don't think the FBI deserves a building the size of the Pentagon and some Taj Mahal to spend almost $1 billion in. I think there's a better way to spend that money. I think there's a lot of places we can look that we can find savings. I see the border that's still not secure. We passed a bill over to the Senate. So we got an appropriation process. There's a lot of ways that we can get legislation in there at the same time. We're going to work each and every day. Every day I'm going to wake up, try to improve from the day before, and keep my eye on what the American people want us to do. Yes.
You all put in a lot of work. You forged some very deep relationships, I think, with your counterpart in the White House through this negotiation with government trust. What has been an ideal question? But I wonder, you all this is one of the most clearly divided times in our political history. Is there potential that this sort of conflict could be used for some other big issues by the U.S. White House, like immigration?
Look, there's a number of things. Well, the first thing I would say, you've got to secure the border before you do immigration reform. And we tried hard to make some of that in here. We tried hard to be able to even reform further that we could become energy independent. And we committed that we'd continue those discussions, that we couldn't get it all in here. But we've got to lower the cost of energy for all Americans. We could become energy independent, but we can help the world and we can lower global emissions around the world. If we simply replaced Russian natural gas in Europe for 1 year, we would lower CO2 emissions by more than 218 million tons. 218 million tons in 1 year. It would create more American jobs. It would make our economy stronger. We need to expand our grid. Garrett has to be an expert in that. And we did forge good relationships. I will tell you, the individuals from Shalom de Young to Rachetti. I have the utmost respect for them. They are bright. They are tough negotiators. They represent it in a professional manner the whole time. And you've got to understand, this was not easy. This negotiation blew up a number of times, where I wasn't sure at times we weren't going to get somewhere. There were times that one side would say to the others, maybe we need to give up. Maybe we have to have somebody else different in the room, that maybe we're not doing something that you're not seeing the way we're seeing it. But the one thing that happened is that we didn't give up, that we believed we could find a place. I know the country is divided. I watched Congress divided today. I watched my own Congress, my own conference. I will work to make sure everybody comes back. It might not be easy, but it's too important to let go. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, it sounds like we won't be doing this again until 2025. What a shame there. But in the meantime, what's your message to voters as they look back on this moment and call it a historic moment in preparation for the next presidential election?
Okay, well, this is what I will say. It doesn't mean we're going to wait just for the next debt ceiling to come. I didn't want to wait till the end days to do this. That's why I went down to see the president February 1st. But we're not going to solve our debt problem by trying to do it during a debt ceiling. I'm putting a commission together as Speaker of Republicans and Democrats. America has done this before. We did it right after World War II. We put a committee together of Republicans and Democrats that looked at any place that they had duplication. It was the last time we had hit debt at 102% of our GDP. And they did it together. And when they found duplication that they could eliminate, they brought it directly to the floor. No amendments, vote it up or vote it down. We can't keep doing the same thing to solve the problem. We have to think differently. And we can't do it with just one party. We are all in this together. And I'm going to encourage the Democratic leader to nominate and appoint the people who will be serious. And when I worked with Hakeem when we did the China Select Committee, that's what we got. And we were able to work together on this. So that's what I'm coming back with tomorrow. Yes, ma'am.
I'm actually going to ask you about the fiscal commission. It sounds like you're looking to put this together outside Democrats and Republicans who serve on this. Would that take us still like to establish this commission? And if so, when would you bring that forward?
Well, I'm not convinced yet that whether I use people on the outside or just use members of Congress themselves. I'm not sure I want to wait for a bill to pass the House and get stuck in the Senate. The Senate doesn't do much. So I happen to be Speaker. Why don't we just create it? Let's not wait. Let's do things. We don't need to keep studying. We don't need to keep waiting. The American people are tired of that. This is a new House under new direction with a new focus. The focus on them. Yes.
I'm just following up on another question. If the Senate passes amendments to this bill, is the House prepared to take up amended bill from the Senate? House or Senate Republicans said that they want to offer amendments.
They can offer amendments. I'm not quite sure they'll pass, but we'll take that up as it goes. Look, the House is here when they weren't supposed to be in session. I know many of them are going home. We'll do whatever needs to be done, but I doubt that it'll come back.
And then can I ask on your relationship with President Biden? How has that changed over this series of negotiations? Obviously, you said negotiating with the White House didn't speak here. You had multiple meetings with the President himself. How has this changed your relationship with him?
He hasn't invited me to dinner or lunch yet, so. Look, I respect anybody in the office. It's not an easy office to win. I understand what they're under. I just hope he doesn't sit back and ignore people when they want to work with you. I enjoyed working with his team. I enjoyed meeting with him. We're wide apart in a philosophy. We're wide apart in the direction we want America to go. We have a much different understanding when it comes to revenue and expenditures. He has increased spending so much in America. It is the highest level we have ever spent in this country. While at the same time, we have the most money ever coming into this country with the largest debt we ever had. It is not a revenue problem, it's a spending problem. And all the president wants to do is keep raising taxes. We should take this moment in time in our history to have the highest revenue to be paying down debt. not spending more. We have a clear difference there. I respect him, I'll debate him, but I'll work with him if we can lower the debt. Yes, ma'am.
Speaker, when we talk about the Senate taking this up later this week, you and your team have really taken the lead on these negotiations with the White House. The Senate wasn't really involved in them. You guys hashed out the deal. So how is this working now when it moves to the Senate? We have some Republican senators saying they'll stall the bill. Are you working with your Senate counterparts to encourage them to vote in favor of this deal and get it signed into law?
Look, everybody gets elected on their own. I think the Senate sat back and they didn't produce anything. Ideally, it would have been great had we produced something as we did and they produced something. We could have gone to conference. Unfortunately, they decided that no, just wait to the deadline and rush everything through. We think Congress should act differently. We should be more responsible. We should be reasonable. We should be sensible. And that's exactly what we did. So I'm sure they can pass the bill. We just sent them one and it's going to be law.
Did you speak to former President Trump about this bill? And so, what did he say about it?
No, I speak to President Trump, but we didn't talk much about the bill. So we don't want to end on that question. Let's end on something else. What are you going to do now when I walk out of my office? Are you still going to be there? All right. I might miss you one day, but remember this. I'll still look forward when you come back. And you know what? You still ask the same questions each week. Do you think you can pass the bill this week? Do you think you'll still be Speaker next week? Keep underestimating us, and we'll keep proving the American public that we're never giving up on you. Thank you and good night.
A Russian man claiming to hold top-level secrets about Russian advanced bombers has just turned up at the U.S. southern border, seeking asylum. The man claims to have been an engineer at a production facility over in the city of Kazan, and he says that he possesses top-secret information about the White Swan Tu-160, which is the most advanced bomber in the Russian arsenal. U.S. border officials, they interviewed the man, and they determined that his story was in fact credible and eventually passed him off to the FBI, who are still in the process of interrogating him right now. However, analysts have pointed out that the fact that the story was even leaked to the public is an indication that perhaps the American government is encouraging other Russians who also hold top-level secrets to also escape to America. And if you thought that was interesting, well then you should click on that button below this video and check out Epic TV, one of the best no-censorship video platforms on the internet.